Bismillah Rahman Rahim. Assalamu alaikum, dear students. This session focuses on assessment types and options for language teachers. I hope and expect by the end of this session, you would have some know-how of the variety of types that is available within assessment and how these options can be used by language teachers. Well, my dear students, the understanding of types of assessment would lead to our understanding of how choices can be made when it comes to the assessment of the students in SL. The first type that I would like to talk about is the selected response type. The selected response type requires students to listen and or read and then select the correct answer by circling or by making a mark. Now, items in this category are suitable for the testing the receptive skills of reading and of listening and passive knowledge of subjects like grammar and vocabulary. So this kind of assessment can be used for this purpose. Such items are relatively quick and easy to administer and score, and scoring them is considered objective. For example, as true, false, or as right, wrong, etc. These items are useful for assessing students' ability to distinguish between the two choices that are offered, and they can serve as a simple and direct measure of the knowledge of the students when it comes to reading or listening comprehension. Matching items require students to indicate which entry is in one list matches items in the other list, and that is another option. These items are compact and they require less space. This is one of the benefits of this type of assessment. Thus, they are often used to efficiently assess students' passive knowledge of vocabulary by requiring them to match definitions or by requiring them to match vocabulary that is given in different lists. The second type of assessment that is used mainly is the constructed response type. This differs fundamentally from the selected response type in the sense that while students are often required to listen and or read, they are also expected to produce either written or oral language ranging from single words to comparatively larger products, for example, complete presentations. So constructed, the word constructed in the name of this type of assessment, the constructed response tells that actually the learners are expected to construct a complete response. They don't have to choose or opt from the given responses. It allows for the assessing of a productive language use, for example, for the speaking skill or for the active knowledge of the learners. It also allows for the assessing of interactions of receptive skills like reading and listening and the productive skills, writing and speaking skills at the same time. Well, this category typically has a very small guessing factor, whereas as compared to this in the previous category, the students only had to mark. So, a guessing a kind of guessing can be used by the learners. Fill-in items require students to write in the missing words in the blanks that are created in the written text. Now, these items are relatively easy to create and score. They are flexible to use and they are relatively quick to administer. Short question answers items such as students write a few words or phrases or short answers in the form of 2 to 3 short sentences, to write a formula, to make a diagram in response to a written text, or oral question that is asked. These are all the varieties that fall under this category. These items are relatively easy to create by the teacher and flexible to use in the classroom in different environments, and they are quick to administer, so they are time-saving when it comes to assess in the class. The third type of assessment that is important is the personal response category. This adds a learner-focused dimension to the assessment process by getting students to use the language to create meanings personally important to them. So this is more like personalized, presentation of whatsoever they want to present. And by getting them personally involved in the assessment process or by stimulating authentic language use, actually the learners are assessed. Well, my dear students, assessment in this category is necessarily integrated into the teaching learning curriculum and can be used to examine the learning processes that are going on. all of which helps provide positive washback effects on the students and on their learning as well. The fourth type that I would like to talk about is conference assessment. Well, it usually involves teachers meeting with single students or small groups of students and going over various language points that need review or practice. So it's more like a process of meeting one individual student or a group of students, a smaller group. The class would be divided, I would say, into various groups, and giving them feedback on their performance. Teachers can use conference assessment to elicit and give feedback on specific skills, on specific tasks, on specific functions of language, on grammar points, etc., as and when needed by the students. Teachers can also use conferences to help students improve their self-image. Such assessment can also help the students to understand their own learning process and thus to look at their own strategies of learning. The fifth important type of assessment is portfolio assessment. In fact, this kind of assessment requires students to collect work of their own choosing that they have done throughout the semester or throughout the course, as well as to reflect on that work and display the portfolios for a particular audience. So it is more a process where the learners are given a lot of scope to present their work and to present their performance. Such assessment is particularly useful for enhancing learning and buy-in to the assessment process because students are creating their own personal portfolios. There is another type of assessment, self-assessment or peer assessment, which involves students scoring or rating their own work or the work of their peers. Such assessment can take less time than the teacher scoring it. So, if it is a class of 50 students and the teacher has to score every student's work, of course, it would take more time. But there and then in the classroom, by, asking the students to exchange, for example, with the peer sitting on their right side, the work that they have done, and to make them check the work of their peers, this would, of course, save a lot of time, effort, and energy on the part of the teacher. The seventh type is the individualized response type. This is even more learner-focused than the personal response category in the sense that the assessment and the feedback are tailored to the individual needs and wants. It is tailored to a specific curriculum and the individual student's needs. The eighth type that is also important is continuous assessment, which turns most or all learning activities into assessment activities. It's not that there would be a particular specified assessment activity at a particular time. Rather, all the activities that would be carried out into the classroom, there would be assessment activities at every step, at every stage. Assessment process would go on, providing feedback in a constant, cyclical, and cumulative way. Creating a constant assessment feedback loop may also increase the motivation for the learners. Well, the ninth type that I would like to talk about is the personal response type of assessment. It adds a learner-focused dimension to the assessment process by getting the students to use the language to create meanings personally that they find important to themselves, by getting themselves personally involved in their assessment process, and by simulating various kinds of authentic language use. The third type of assessment is differentiated assessment, which requires teachers to first assess the student's learning style, to differentiate what is the learning style of one student in comparison or contrast to the other student. So, for example, visual, auditory, kinesthetic, or other learning styles, and then to provide assessment accordingly. So these are various types of assessment that can be chosen from in a language teaching classroom.